Hello, this is Sam, has come all the way from Brighton to talk about VR evangelizing. Yeah, let's have a round of applause. We haven't had one yet, so. It took me 4 years living in the UK to understand that you say a round of applause, and not a random applause. I feel so weird at gigs, you know. Anyway.
I think my talk's going to be very random.
This is here, and this is all yours.
So I've known Silan for quite a while, and he's asked me a couple of times to come up to VR Manchester, and I eventually had time in my schedule to come and do it today. And obviously with the events yesterday, there was a lot of discussion this morning about whether as we go ahead, whether I will be able to get here. And then adventures in evangelism, I kind of wanted to get away from religious stuff, and also because I'm old and I love 80s movies, I wanted to get a reference to one of my favourite films, Adventures in Babysitting. So having done VR for a number of years, it feels like you are kind of babysitting the technology to a certain degree, so it seemed quite fitting to amend it on the way. So I am Sam Watts, I'm Director of Immersive Technologies at a company called Make Real down in Brighton. We have been in existence about 10 years overall. About 4 years ago we pivoted from what we call lowercase virtual reality, sort of cave system simulation, into uppercase virtual reality, headsets, etc. It came about through one of the projects I'll go into at the moment. I didn't want to make this obviously a big sales pitch either, but a lot of the evangelism and sort of what I've been doing has come about promoting the company and promoting the technology. So just a quick bit about me. After graduating in 2000, I worked for an e-learning company, a giant Korean MMO company, a little flash web games company who did a lot of stuff for the BBC, another Korean MMO company, evil free-to-play stuff, and then I worked with Zynga testing their localization. I've always been sort of background QA and not really sort of at forefront, not doing this standing stage, talking in front of people because it terrified the shit out of me. Whereas when I joined Make Real just over 4 years ago now, and they've got a DK1 on pre-order from the Kickstarter, we found ourselves in a situation where we had to do things like this, like going out there to evangelise the technology. So I've spent 3 years sticking random things on my head, which has been a lot of fun, and you can get free beer out of the bucket if you can name all of those. The one I particularly enjoyed is this one here, which is Through the Eyes of Animals, which is an art installation using LiDAR. Wonderfully designed, unfortunately just uses DK2s and has no positional tracking, makes you feel quite ill, but as an early adopter of VR, that's what you get used to. So some of the people we work for and work with, I've got some of the experiences here today on HoloLens. We've got some of our EDF projects. McDonald's I'll go on in a minute. But it was actually RS who pretty much started all of the virtual reality stuff for us. When we first got the DK1, we were designing a website for the other part of the company was designing a website for them, and they kept on coming through and seeing us playing all this weird VR stuff. They weren't too sure what it was. And they were launching in China, and they wanted us to create something to make a splash. So pretty much, they took that first leap, which is like one of the major sort of my efforts at the moment is convincing companies to get involved with VR and go beyond the wow factor and actually understand the benefits of it. So that's 2014, and we've done a range of things since, some of which I'll cover. I have most of them here. I do have a demo laptop and everything set up at the back. But the main one, after RS, it was such a success that we actually turned it into a game, which is kind of where my evangelizing and promotion, educating journey and going from the background into the foreground and how to social and various things I had no idea or no desire to do sort of started. And it's been a great success for us. Back in 2014, people were still combating dodgy technology that would make you feel ill. We managed to create a game that was very high speed and generally didn't make you feel ill. And that was with the rise of technology, a lot of people were very keen to understand how we did that. That then led on to our second game, which we actually released about a month ago, and I'm mostly showcasing here today. And it's something after the dark, serious side of sci-fi and moodiness of the artwork. We wanted to create something very fun, light and exciting. So if you just indulge me, we have the very short trailer.
Entertaining me today. Loco Dojo!
So, are you guessing some who this was? Yes. So we've done some other VR games as well, some beautiful cardboard stuff, and we're working on a couple of other titles which I can't really talk about at the moment. So VR, where are we at the moment? It's kind of a difficult time to get promotion and coverage at the moment because last year, the year of VR hype, not the year of VR, I refuse to ever use that sentence or naming convention, is pretty much over. A lot of the main gaming press is no longer really interested in VR games. A lot of the startup early VR specific sites that have cropped up have disappeared, but because we've been around for 3-4 years, sort of veterans so to speak, we have very good connections with the ones who still exist. And it's very difficult to know in terms of like market size how we're doing. We know for sure that there's over 1 million PSVRs. We know for sure there's over 5 million Samsung Gear VRs. We know for sure there's over 10 million Google Cardboards. Those are numbers that are officially released by those companies. I generally ignore analyst numbers. SID data are generally wrong. They'll then come back and correctly adjust down their numbers that they produced at the start of the year. But sort of around those numbers, we kind of know what the market size is, and that's the challenge. Is obviously being able to form a business, especially if you're making games, out of that limited market size. So we got a hype cycle. This is actually from July last year. I always thought that the VR is currently in a trough of disillusionment, but he has it in a slope of enlightenment. I guess I always say overall VR as a technology, bearing in mind this is like the 4th iteration, there's nothing new, probably is there, but the current iteration is probably in the trough still. But still, being involved in VR is very exciting and a lot of fun, and it's very challenging, very rewarding. But why do I do it? Why do I put myself through standing on stage and travelling up to Manchester or Dublin or Belfast or a variety of other places I've been over the past couple of weeks? It's mainly about raising awareness, but most importantly it's about education. talking to people about the potential of VR, they feel very honest, and you don't oversell the possibilities. There's a lot of people go, yeah, VR will solve all your problems, when it may not. But ultimately, it's a lot of fun. 9 out of 10 people still haven't tried it. They still get that wow moment, and it never gets old of seeing people having their minds blown for the first time. So some of the stuff that we've done in terms of outreach and programs. This is the original RS booth in a China event in 2014. I'm not entirely sure. We might have been the first people to have Oculus Day 1 in China. Certainly, maybe illegally, we didn't have an allowance, that's for sure. But it was a very successful event. They had 4 people racing against each other around a track that was in the shape of the RS logo, and so successful in that it was threatened to be shut down every day. And as you can see down here, he's got evacuation control on his jacket, and it was very, very popular. And that was our sort of first taste of the draw of VR, and thought, actually there's something in this. Part of what I do is sort of social media presence, and you can try all kinds of things as much as you want. There's a various series of hashtags and everything else you can follow. There's a load of other people doing it as well. There's a load of people wanting to be social media influencers. Sometimes just a cheeky tweet will get you much more rewards. So we just launched a Kickstarter, and we had a booth down at Develop in Brighton. I saw Yoshida turn up in the morning. I knew he was looking for VR stuff. I knew he liked racing games. So I sent him a cheeky tweet, and thought nothing more of it. Dealt with the crowd, dealt with the booth. 5 o'clock, there's a little tap on the shoulder, and he's there standing, asking to speak to me to play the game. He then retweeted this, and the internet blew up, because you may notice he's holding an Xbox controller, and the Sony fanboys were absolutely livid. But, it really helps draw attention to our Kickstarter. Similarly, Oculus retweeted one of ours about the Kickstarter to Palmer, who at the time was the founder, one of the founders of Oculus. We knew what he meant, but we had a little joke with him, and then with special permission, he lets us use his quote in the trailer. And then when we went to the Oculus Media Days, he was still happy to post photos. Similarly, local boy, Craig Charles, a couple of years ago at Glastonbury, we were running a gaming tent there, and they were looking for content, so I reached out and offered Radio G, found this picture randomly of Craig Charles playing, reached out to him again via Twitter, asked him what he thought of it. He DM'd us and basically said, that's amazing, you've got to hook us up with some of that kit. So we thought, why not? And there's a story I'll tell you over the years involving his dog. But anyway, the part of evangelism, as I say, is getting up on stage, and it took me a long time to get to this point where I could actually do it without being terrified. But a good way to start is to take part in panel discussions. So I've done a number of panels. Public Gamer Connect, VR Connect in London, VR World Congress in Bristol a couple of months ago. And it got to the point where I thought, I could actually do my own talks. So, little local pub back where I'm from, 50 odd interested people. They have a night called Skeptics in the Pub, and it's new technology. There's a lot of skeptics, especially in a tiny little town where I'm from. It's all very raw technology, scary. So I ran a talk, and it was very popular, which then leads to ending up doing keynotes for launching Brighton Digital Festival last year. And then there's events to run as well. So like Jam Chester and other game jams, organising VR hackathons. We had good connections with Oculus by that point. They donated a whole load of Rifts. It was before the Touch was out, so not many developers have got their hands on it. And we ran a Oculus Touch hackathon to, again, help the community get access to the hardware before they actually had a game idea to enable Oculus to give them the hardware. And then running other events such as this takes a lot of planning and organisation, but again, ultimately rewarding, and then prepares you to iron out all the kinks. So when you're working with corporate partners, you can actually ensure that things run smoothly on a day-to-day business for all of their clients or their internal staff, and then they have the confidence to invite you to random blow-up tents in the countryside promoting STEM subjects to young women. It's another project we worked on, and then you get invited to very large sort of publishing events and run VR lounges. But then that was nothing at all compared to running a 14-metre Arctic truck from McDonald's to promote farming for UK and Ireland. There's currently fewer younger people going farming than older people leaving it. There was a very large food chain, and they need a constant supply of ingredient suppliers. So they contracted us to make a series of VR experiences to encourage young people to get into farming and understand what it's taken about. So it sounds dull and very easy, but we created a 2-player potato harvesting experience in virtual reality, and learned it's actually quite hard to drive in a straight line at a constant velocity. And then you end up doing things like being interviewed for Farming Today, the Radio 4. It does present you with fantastic photo opportunities when young farmers come up and you just sort of put their caps back on. So just in terms of building communities and working together and everything else, the importance of evangelising about spreading the message is positivity and working together and helping people understand. And it doesn't matter what age people are, there's an inherent interest in virtual reality majoritively, and it's kind of your duty to spread that good word about virtual reality and ensure that people come away with a positive outlook and a clear understanding of what it can be, even if it's my grandma. DK1, DK2, EVR, I haven't got her in the CV1 yet. But educating, but ultimately enjoying. Even if, it does sometimes get you into the Guardian and they label you as a potential pornographer, but that's another story. So we ended on 3 points. Basically, VR tech does not equal nausea anymore. Badly designed experiences do. There are no VR experts. I'm very happy you didn't introduce anyone or haven't yet introduced anyone as a VR expert. I hate the term expert. It's nothing to do with Brexit, the lead or anything like that. It's just the technology is evolving so much still that everybody who calls themselves an expert means that they've stopped learning, they think they know everything, but there's still so much more to learn and so much more to adapt and carry on with. So VR specialist is fine. And finally, back to my earlier point, VR isn't a magic bullet. It won't solve all of your problems, don't say it as so, but it's our duty to educate and inform the appropriate use of.
Dojo. I've seen that on your picture there was just the Oculus logo. I was wondering, is that an Oculus exclusive? Are you coming out for the Vive as well?
It's currently available on Oculus Touch and Rift.
Oh, Rift as well. Okay, thank you. So I'm always interested in how you measure effectiveness of a thing you did. So the McDonald's thing, getting young farmers involved, did they have any metric for measuring that success, or that you got to find out about?
Yeah, well, their main metric of success was the amount of coverage it caused. Fortunately for them, they launched last year around April 2 million impressions across all of their articles that covered it. They did organise a media day, and select media were invited to attend and try it all out. But from that, it snowballs, and through our own connections to VR Focus, Upload, Risk Update, etc., enabled them to get it out to the wider technology press. They were very much focused on the farming side of things. One of our other projects, ProCat, which is the Prospects College of Advanced Technology in Basildon, Essex, who've just deployed 3 training programs for electricians, plumbers, and refrigeration and aircon maintenance. That ties in like traditional learning content, so it's all tracked in the background using Unity Analytics, which is then written to a CSV file, which is then imported into their learning management systems. So they can see a first-time user going through the various assessment criteria, how their scores adapt and change, and how long they take to carry out each task over time and repeat use.
That's awesome. Love it. Any other questions for Sam? Yes.
Hi Sam. Thank you for coming up all the way. It's brilliant to see you here. In terms of branding or brands, when you pitch into them, has it become easier to get across them the possibilities of VR now, or do they have the right own ideas, or are you still trying to sort of lead them down various paths in terms of the features of products?
Sometimes it's really easy. I'm not saying there's a clear-cut definition of a known sort of type of company who will easily accept it. Some companies we work with, they're very much open to the idea. They need a little bit of hand-holding and educating of what they could do. You would never go into a project with them just having a list of ideas and then going, there you go make that. We'd always work through with them what's possible and achievable within your time budget and everything else. But we are starting to see more and more clients who've done VR work before, especially in the marketing field. They've created, their marketing team has created a 360 video. They've done some brand awareness. I know VR. We've done Google Cardboard. I know everything they can do. And then you kind of have to force them into a Rift or a Vive with full motion track controls, and then they're like, oh, okay, right, yeah, now I get what VR can do. Sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's easy. It's just, it's a part of the job of being able to educate and inform and inspire.
Thanks. We've got time for one more question before we have a quick break. If we don't have another question, we can have a break earlier. No? Okay, so what we'll do, thank you, sorry, let's applaud again for Sam, all the way from Brighton. Thank you. So we will have a quick break before we go back to Salford-Junior announcement, and I know Peter has something to say, and then we will have Sarah, who will come up and do the talk about wing walking with the Gear VR. What was the other? It was a long title. I loved it. It was a great title. So please be back, sat down for it's 5 past now, isn't it? Yeah, so 1:15 sharp is when we'll start again. So we've got 10 minutes, grab another drink, use the loo, whatever you need to do. Thanks.